is.
You're out of tune.
It almost sounds like you're using a slide guitar.
Yeah, it does.
I was in tune. I don't know what happened. Not a good way to start the program, but good morning, everyone. I don't know what happened there. And I can see we have Adam. Adam is with us this morning. Morning, Adam. How are you? I was in tune. I don't know what in the world happened. Oh, my Lord. It's the D. Apparently, someone bumped the D. And the A. Though he is fine. Still not crazy about it, but it's better. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, my friends. God's blessings upon you. Let's praise the Lord together, my friends. We have all awakened in God's shelter. Now we've come to praise His name together. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good
My friend.
my friend.
Say Hosanna.
Hosanna.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
The power in the sanctuary of our Lord's protection and the stronghold of our Lord's defense. With His love, our spirits are illumined as we glorify His name. Our hearts are blessed. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, my friend.
My friend.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning,
Good morning.
my friend.
My friend.
Good morning. Good morning. Apparently, our newly returned producer-director feels we need to be a little louder. The music needs to be louder. How's it sounding in Zoom? Someone tell us, how does that sound in Zoom? Because
It sounds pretty good.
okay, not too muted?
Well, not as distorted as it was a while ago.
Well, that was just because everything was out of tune. I was terribly out of tune, but balance-wise, I'm going to turn it up just a tad, just for the Facebook folks, because they're getting it through a totally different source. That's probably a little too loud, you think?
Just a hair.
Just a hair?
Yeah.
Okay. I got to tell you,
Very good.
I hate when the technical stuff gets in the way of the spiritual stuff. But good morning, everyone, and good morning, Cambyse, and Michael, and Hushong, and Gilbert, and Adam, and Cambyse, and Andy, and Gideon Farha. It's good to see all of you.
Gilbert.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. And good morning, everyone in the Facebook feed. And good morning, Daryl. How you doing?
I'm pretty good, Tony. How are you?
I'm saving the best for last.
Good morning, Nina.
Good morning, Nini.
Good morning.
How are you doing? After a long hiatus, she is back with us. Yeah, so let's go ahead and start with a prayer. And this is a prayer from Bahá'u'lláh. Glory be to thee, O my God. Thou hearest thine ardent lovers, lamenting in their separation from thee, and such as have recognized thee wailing because of their remoteness from thy presence. Open thou outwardly to their faces, O my Lord, the gates of thy grace, that they may enter them by thy leave and in conformity with thy will, and may stand before the throne of thy majesty and catch the accents of thy voice, and be illumined with the splendors of the light of thy face. Potent art thou to do what pleaseth thee. None can withstand the power of thy sovereign might. From everlasting thou wert alone, with none to equal thee, and wilt unto everlasting remain far above all thought and every description of thee. Have mercy then upon thy servants by thy grace and bounty, and suffer them not to be kept back from the shores of the ocean of thy nearness. If thou abandonest them, who is there to befriend them? And if thou puttest them far from thee, who is he that can favor them? They have none other Lord beside thee, none to adore except thyself. Deal thou generously with them by thy bountiful grace. Thou in truth art the ever-forgiving, the most compassionate. And this is a prayer by Bahá'u'lláh. And we're going to go ahead, of course, and get started. And as usual, we are reading from Shoghi Effendi's The Advent of Divine Justice. The Advent of Divine Justice. And in the past few weeks, since we started it, we covered, the fact, this is, again, to anyone who needs to be reminded, this is a letter to the North American believers back in 1938.
Yes.
38, right? So why would we be reading, a book that's almost 100 years old? It is because it is still so current and so relevant to today. If you've been with us, the things that have been, that we've covered so far, it sounds like he could have written this letter yesterday.
Yes.
And the same will remain even today. Now, one of the things that I want to point out before we start reading is that in the past couple of our gatherings, Shoghi Effendi has just rained praise on the American believers. But he pointed out that on what their accomplishments were and what their accomplishments are believed to become in the future from the time of this writing. But he pointed out it wasn't because they were so special, it was because the conditions of the American society compared to other Baha'i communities in other countries was more favorable for the accomplishing of various objectives in the teaching of the Baha'i faith. So he's rained a lot of praise on American believers, the North American believers. But today, there's going to be a little more praise, but he kind of shifts course and points out some of the, shall we say, obstacles some
challenges.
Some of the challenges. There you go, some of the challenges. So Daryl, all that being said, would you please?
Okay. This section, my book is marked into individual sections. Tony's is not, but this section is called the supreme function of his revelation.
I'm glad you pointed that out because maybe I need to point out for anyone who has this particular edition of this book, and I don't even remember which one it is. This is from 2006. Okay. The page that we are starting on, I wish I had kept that open at that point, is page 25. Yes. Page
What book
20.
is this?
Page 25. Yes. Okay.
It's the advent of divine justice.
Advent of divine justice.
Okay, the supreme function of his revelation. How often have the prophets of God, not accepting Bahá'u'lláh himself, have chosen to appear and deliver their message in countries and amidst peoples and races at a time when they were either fast declining or had already touched the lowest depths of moral and spiritual degradation. The appalling misery and wretchedness to which the Israelites had sunk under the debasing and tyrannical rule of the pharaohs in the days preceding their exodus from Egypt under the leadership of Moses, the decline that had set in the religious, the spiritual, the cultural, and the moral life of the Jewish people at the time of the appearance of Jesus Christ, the barbarous cruelty, the gross idolatry and immorality, which had for so long been the most distressing features of the tribes of Arabia, and brought such shame upon them when Muhammad arose to proclaim his message in their midst. The indescribable state of decadence, with its attendant corruption, confusion, intolerance, and oppression in both the civil and religious life of Persia, so graphically portrayed by the pen of a considerable number of scholars, diplomats, and travelers at the hour of the revelation of Bahá'u'lláh, all demonstrate this basic and inescapable fact.
Okay. What is that basic and inescapable fact? I mean, that's several sentences, but I think the point that he's making is kind of far back. That the prophets of God have chosen to appear and deliver their message in countries and amidst people and races at a time when they were either fast declining,
Right.
or had already touched the lowest depths of moral and spiritual degradation. And this is important to remember as we continue on. And so it says, this is just a basic fact. All of the prophets of God demonstrate this basic fact. I mean, all of the people who have written about these, the various prophets and so forth, demonstrate this basic and inescapable fact. Please continue.
To contend that the innate worthiness, the high moral standard, the political aptitude and social attainments of any race or nation is the reason for the appearance in its midst of any of these divine luminaries would be an absolute perversion of historical facts and would amount to a complete repudiation of the undoubted interpretation placed upon them so clearly and emphatically by both Bahá'u'lláh and Abdul-Baha. How great then must be the challenge to those who, belonging to such races and nations and having responded to the call which these prophets have raised, to unreservedly recognize and courageously testify to this indubitable truth, that not by reason of any racial superiority, political capacity, or spiritual virtue which a race or nation might possess, but rather as a direct consequence of its crying needs, its lamentable degeneracy, and irremediable perversity, has the prophet of God chosen to appear in its midst, and with it as a lever has lifted the entire human race to a higher, nobler plane of life and conduct. For it is precisely under such circumstances and by such means that the prophets have, from time immemorial, chosen and were able to demonstrate their redemptive power to raise from the depths of abasement and of misery the people of their own race and nation, empowering them to transmit in turn to other races and nations the saving grace and the energizing influence of their revelation.
Okay, so Daryl asked that. So I mean, again, he lists some things that are all good things. Earlier in this paragraph, he says, not by reason. And then he lists some things. In other words, if I were back home where I grew up, we'd be saying, it ain't got nothing to do with racial superiority, not by reason of any racial superiority. You don't have that. Political capacity, not good enough. Or spiritual virtue, not by reason of any racial superiority, political capacity, or spiritual virtue which a race or nation might possess, but rather as a direct consequence of its crying needs, its lamentable degeneracy, and irremediable perversity. Irremediable, meaning you can't.
Not fixable.
Yeah, you can't fix it. It's lamentable degeneracy and irremediable perversity has the prophet of God chosen to appear in its midst. These people need it most. Those are my words. But there's a logic behind it. There's a reason behind it. If we can lift these people, then we can use that to lift the global community. Because he says, right. And with it as a lever, has lifted the entire human race to a higher and nobler plane of life and conduct.
Right, and what that is an important statement, because he's saying this is not a local thing that's going on.
Yeah.
This is something that's happening around the world, and the world is in such a state that it doesn't matter who they are or what's going on. The degradation is pervasive.
Yes.
And it is at this time, and there's no better time than for a new revelation of God to appear.
Yeah. You sure this was written in 1938? Please continue.
In the light of this fundamental principle, it should always be borne in mind, in the light of this fundamental principle, it should always be borne in mind, nor can it be sufficiently emphasized that the primary reason why the Bab and Bahá'u'lláh chose to appear in Persia and to make it the first repository of their revelation was because of all the peoples and nations of the civilized world, that race and nation had, as so often depicted by Abdu'l-Baha, sunk to such ignominious depths and manifested so great a perversity as to find no parallel among its contemporaries.
I got a question for you, man. Did you know what ignominious meant? Ignominious. I had to look it up. I knew it wasn't good because of the context.
Right.
But ignominious? Do you know what ignominious means? She's gonna be like, what are you, an idiot? Deserving of shame.
That's right.
Deserving of shame. So yeah, sunk to such ignominious depths. Just such shameful depths, and manifested so great a perversity as to find no parallel among its contemporaries.
That's right.
You are the worst of the worst.
There was so much corruption in Persia at the time that there was no. Baha'u'lláh had to appear there.
Yes.
Had to appear there. For no more convincing proof could be adduced demonstrating the regenerating spirit animating the revelations proclaimed by the Bab and Bahá'u'lláh than their power to transform what can truly be regarded as one of the most backward, the most cowardly, and perverse of peoples into a race of heroes, fit to effect, in turn, a similar revolution in the life of mankind.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty sad statement on the conditions of Persia.
Yeah.
To have appeared among a race or nation which by its intrinsic worth and high attainment seem to warrant the inestimable privilege of being made the receptacle of such a revelation would, in the eyes of an unbelieving world, greatly reduce the efficacy of that message and detract from the self-sufficiency of its omnipotent power.
Care to explain?
It just, again, it's a statement that says that, Bahá'u'lláh had to appear there.
Right, because he said if he had appeared in some other place that didn't have all these issues, that wasn't at that lowly state, it would have reduced the, what was the reduced efficacy? Greatly reduced the efficacy of that message and detract from the self-sufficiency of its omnipotent power. It almost feels like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You've got to go somewhere that's broken to apply a remedy.
That's right.
Yes.
The contrast so strikingly presented in the pages of Nabil's narrative. Nabil wrote the Dawnbreakers. It's another Baha'i book. The contrast so strikingly presented in the pages of Nabil's narrative between the heroism that immortalized the life and deeds of the Dawnbreakers and the degeneracy and cowardice of their defamers and persecutors is in itself a most impressive testimony to the truth of the message of him who had instilled such a spirit into the breast of his disciples. For any believer of that race to maintain that the excellence of his country and the innate nobility of its people were the fundamental reasons for its being singled out as the primary receptacle of the revelations of the Bab and Bahá'u'lláh would be untenable in the face of the overwhelming evidence afforded so convincingly by that narrative. Now, if you read the preface to the Dawnbreakers, talks about the corruption and the degeneracy and the state of the social order, the political order, and the religious order in Persia at the time. And it's an incredible read, and things had so degraded that something had to happen. Something had to happen because it was so bad.
Now, I do have a question. Remember, this is a letter to the North American believers. Remember that Baha'u'llah's revelation had already been, the beginnings of it had already been established. Remember that his word had already been revealed. So why, and based on this principle that you got to go to the lowest of the low, why is he saying this to the American believers? Why this principle of we got to go to the worst point? Establish and lift that part of society. Establish the word, lift that part of society, and raise that part of the global society, and then use that as sort of a fulcrum or a lever, to lift the rest of the global community. Why is he sharing this with the with the American believers? I'm asking a question. I'll answer it. It's because in the part you're about to read, he's saying we're kind of doing the same thing here.
Right.
Yeah. And he points out to a lesser degree, same thing here. So I just thought that we might want to prepare people that, again, Shoghi Effendi has rained praise on the North American believers, and then, talked about some of the issues of the North American society, but then he kind of goes into the reasoning as to, this is why, basically this principle applies here as well. Start with those that need it most.
Okay. To a lesser degree, this principle must of necessity apply to the country which has vindicated its right to be regarded as the cradle of the world order of Bahá'u'lláh. So great a function, so noble a road, can be regarded as no less inferior to the part played by those immortal souls who, through their sublime renunciation and unparalleled deeds, have been responsible for the birth of the faith itself. Let not, therefore, those who are to participate so predominantly in the birth of that world civilization, which is the direct offspring of their faith, imagine for a moment that for some mysterious purpose, or by any reason of inherent excellence or special merit, Bahá'u'lláh has chosen to confer upon their country and people so great a lasting distinction. So great and lasting distinction. It is precisely by reason of the patent evils, which notwithstanding its other admittedly great characteristics and achievements, an excessive and binding materialism has unfortunately engendered within it that the author of their faith and the center of his covenant have singled it out to become the standard bearer of the new world order envisaged by their writing.
In other words, you all have a lot of good things in your society, but that's not why you are given this task. It's because of the bad things in your society. You know, you've got the skills, you've got the talent, but that's not the reason. It's because of these other negatives that this is the right place for, again, becoming the, what is it, the standard bearer?
The standard bearer.
Yeah,
Yes.
the world, standard bearer of the new world order envisaged in their writings, yeah.
It is by such means as this that Bahá'u'lláh can best demonstrate to a heedless generation, he's saying this is a heedless generation, his mighty power to raise up from the very midst of a people immersed in a sea of materialism, a prey to one of the most virulent and long-standing forms of racial prejudice, and notorious for its political corruption, lawlessness, and laxity in moral standards. Men and women who, as time goes by, will increasingly exemplify those essential virtues of self-renunciation, of moral rectitude, of chastity, of indiscriminating fellowship, of holy discipline, and of spiritual insight that will fit them for the preponderating share they will have in calling into being that world order and that world civilization of which their country, no less than the entire human race, stands in desperate need.
Wow. I mean, I don't know. This is Shogi Effendi, but I don't know. Do you think he might have called it wrong?
No, not at all. Not at all. If Bahá'u'lláh, and we just studied the proofs of Baha'u'llah's mission
Right.
in the last book, if Bahá'u'lláh is to prove the potency of his message, where better than to prove it in the place that needs it the most?
Well, hang on now. You mean to tell me, it says, what is it? It is by such means as this that Baha'u'lláh can best demonstrate to a heedless generation his almighty power to raise up from the very midst of a people immersed in a sea of materialism. You mean that?
Oh, absolutely.
A prey to one of the most virulent and long-standing forms of racial prejudice. You think that's accurate?
Yes.
And notorious for his political corruption, not us.
Yeah.
Political corruption, lawlessness, and laxity in moral standards. Men and women who, as time goes by, because he says this is what we see in America, but he's pointing out that in time, men and women who, as time goes by, will increasingly exemplify those essential virtues of renunciation, of moral rectitude, of chastity, of indiscriminating fellowship, of holy discipline, and of spiritual insight that will fit them for the preponderating share they will have in calling into being that world order and that world civilization and so forth. So he's saying, here's the negatives, but some positives are coming, but I feel like we're in the middle of the negatives. I don't know. I mean, I don't have a crystal
Well,
ball.
even though this was written in 1938, it still applies.
Yeah.
It's still
And I know you're right. I know you're right. And we're talking about, we can't see over that long arc of time when these positive attributes will start emerging.
Right.
But it sure feels like, and obviously I was kind of playing devil's advocate, like we're right there smack dab in the middle of all those other negatives that he listed.
Song.
You think it's sometime? Okay. Song. I'll admit there are switches I have to turn on and, okay.
Generous in prosperity and thankful in adversity. Be worthy of the trust of thy neighbor, and look upon him with a bright and friendly face. Be a treasure to the poor, an admonisher to the rich, an answerer to the cry of the needy, a preserver of the sanctity of thy pledge. Fair in thy judgment and guarded in thy speech. Be unjust to no man, and show all meekness to all men. Be as a lamp unto them that walk in darkness, a joy to the sorrowful, a sea for the thirsty, a haven for the distressed, an upholder and defender of the victim of oppression. Let integrity and uprightness distinguish all thine acts. Be a home for the stranger, a balm to the suffering, a tower of strength for the fugitive. Be eyes to the blind, and a guiding light unto the feet of the erring. Be an ornament to the countenance of truth, a crown to the brow of fidelity, a pillar of the temple of righteousness, a breath of life to the body of mankind, an ensign of the host of justice, a luminary above the horizon of virtue, a dew to the soil of the human heart, on the ocean of knowledge, a sun in the heaven of bounty, a gem on the diadem of wisdom, a shining light in the firmament of thy generation, a fruit upon the tree of humility. We pray God to protect thee from the heat of jealousy and the cold of hatred. He verily is now ready to answer.
Thank you, Nini.
Thank you, Nini.
Thank you. I have something I want to share.
You have something you want to share. Nini has something she wants to share. Yes, Nini. Share away.
Society made by humans.
Yeah.
Different group of people.
Mm-hmm.
Country made by different families
Mm-hmm.
in a certain areas. By traveling and as a foreigner of this country, every single country go through this challenge because of our growing or our needy and our teaching and our custom and different needs of people.
Okay.
But when people exchange the need to be want, and when the people know what other people can have and use that want to be in turn of developing instead of the developing of the spiritual. And I think that is where the collapse.
This excessive.
So
I'm sorry.
I love this song because I love this writing. Because to me, everything is so simple. Honestly, the writing that you just sing by Bahá'u'lláh
Mm-hmm.
is so simple that everybody can do.
Yeah.
Like Daryl's always said, if you cannot do anything, you don't want to do anything, do the simplest thing is give love.
That's right.
And you're right. When we go too far, certainly we have to have our needs met. But when our life becomes overly concerned, or we become overly concerned with material pursuits and material accomplishments and materialism, well, then we're getting farther and farther away from the Word of God that leads us spiritually while still allowing us to meet our material needs. But
And I love the devotion because I think it's like a reminding, like every week, like devotion everywhere. I'm not just saying this devotion.
Right.
Like, once a while, or not once a while, like once a week, and Christian will do twice a week. Those kind is good because it's a reminder.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
But do not change any of the basic writing of what either Jesus, Bahá'u'lláh, who tell you guys it's not that hard.
That's really what they tell us. It's not that hard. That's right. Thank you so much, Nini. Yes, it's not that hard. And yet we make it hard.
Yeah.
I mean, we take our eye off of those things that we should keep our eye on. Okay, Daryl, please.
So, just to go on, theirs will be the duty and privilege in their capacity first as the establishers of one of the most powerful pillars sustaining the edifice of the universal house of justice, and then as the champion builders of that new world order of which that house is to be the nucleus and forerunner, to inculcate, demonstrate, and apply those twin and sorely needed principles of divine justice and order, principles to which the political corruption and the moral license increasingly staining the society to which they belong offer so sad and striking a contrast.
Yes. Yes.
That says that we have a responsibility. That we have a responsibility to make a change, to make this change.
Yeah.
Will you read the last paragraph there? Observations?
Okay. I'm looking at that sentence you just read, and apply those twin and sorely needed principles of
Justice.
divine justice
And
order. Principles of the political corruption and the moral license, increasingly staining the society to which they belong, offer so sad and striking a contrast. Wow. To continue, observations such as these, however distasteful, and oh my Lord, he knows it.
right.
Observations such as these, however distasteful and depressing they may be, should not in the least blind us to those virtues and qualities of high intelligence, of youthfulness, of unbounded initiative and enterprise which the nation as a whole so conspicuously displays, and which are being increasingly reflected by the community of the believers within. Upon these virtues and qualities, no less than upon, let me start again. Upon these virtues and qualities, no less than upon the elimination of the evils referred to, must depend, to a very great extent, the ability of that community to lay a firm foundation for the country's future in ushering in the golden age of the cause of Bahá'u'lláh. I'm going to mess with that sentence a bit. I am. Because, I could get into how it's passive, and I think it would be better active. But that's me saying I could write better than Shoghi Effendi, and I am not allowed to say that. But just to kind of clarify, I'm going to just turn some phrases around. The ability of that community to lay a firm foundation for the country's future, meaning that community, meaning the American community, and not just USA, but the American community, North American community, to a great extent, the ability of that community to lay a firm foundation for the country's future role in ushering the golden age of the cause of Bahá'u'lláh. Let's see. I had it and now it's gone. Must depend. Yes, I'm going to do it again. The ability of that community to lay a firm foundation for the country's future role in ushering in the golden age of the cause of Bahá'u'lláh must depend upon these virtues and qualities, no less upon the elimination of the evils that he has referred to. So the raw material is there, the virtues and the qualities, and with the emphasis on the virtues of this society and the other existing qualities in the American society, North American society, it is these virtues and qualities that must be used to overcome, those evils, to eliminate those evils that he referred to. And as a result, lay a firm foundation for the country's future role in ushering in the golden age of the cause of Bahá'u'lláh. I kind of feel like here, Shoghi Effendi is a coach.
Well, of course he is.
Yeah.
This is kind of Shoghi Effendi saying, excuse me, you've got like a wart right there.
Yeah.
This kind of thing, you got a wart right there.
Yeah. See, I feel like he's saying you can do it. You can do
well,
it.
he
You
is
got
saying
what
you
it
can
takes.
do it. You can do
You
it.
got what it takes. But you got these other problems you have to deal with. You
That's
have
right.
these other things you have to deal with. And if you don't deal with those things, having the potential doesn't mean very much.
Not at all.
It won't become reality unless you deal with those issues. And now, folks,
That
at
is
this
the
time,
section. Yeah.
it has become, well, let's see. Now we're going to stop there, right?
Yes,
That's where we're
we're gonna
stopping.
stop.
Okay. And now, at this time, as you know, we always like to have this time where people can share personal prayers and psalms and readings of their choice. We always like to begin with our Cambridge moment, and we hope that Andy will be offering us something, and anyone else who chooses to offer up a prayer or reading. I don't think I got a chance to say hello to Alex and Maria, so hi Alex and Maria, how you doing? So Cambridge, do you have something to share with us today?
Sure.
He says it like, yeah, of course, what do you think? So please, yes. Thank you, Kambiz. Thank you very much. Andy, do you have something you can share with us?
Say God suffices, all things above, all things are nothing in the heavens or the earth. Say God suffices. Verily, He is in Himself the knower, sustainer, the omnipotent.
Thank you so much, Andy. That was beautiful. Thank you. That was one of the first songs I ever learned from the faith. This-
یا الهی اسمك شفایی و ذکرك دوایی و قربك جایی و حبك مونسی و رحمتك طبیبی و معینی في الدنيا والآخرة إنك أنت المطيع العليم الحكيم إنك أنت المطيع العليم الحكيم.
Thank you, Gila. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
به نام گوینده تواناک، ای دوست در روزه قلب جز گل عشق مکار و از زیر بلبل حبش رو دست ندار. مصاحبت احرار را غنیمت دان و از مرافقتش را دست و دل قبل بردار.
Thank you, E.T. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to share? Well then, folks, as always, we always like to point out that this is a joint community effort. Different people of different communities, primarily in the local Tampa Bay area, but also some people bringing up the rear from South Florida. and also from a little further north of here, but that's still generally Tampa Bay. You do consider yourself.
And also East Florida as well.
I forgot about it. I'm totally leaving Andy out of the equation. So yes, East Florida as well. Thanks, Andy. Yes, and so we all come together to share. And there are other, online devotions and other now face-to-face devotions as well. We started this at the very beginning of the COVID lockdown, it's now, golly, man, it's been
2 years.
Yeah,
It's over 2 years.
yeah, wow. And no matter how much I say we're gonna go back to doing things the way we used to, it just has a good feeling to it. So truth be told, we were talking about that, a couple of months back, we're gonna go back. We don't know when or if we're gonna go back to the,
Right.
to the center and so forth. We just don't know. But we're enjoying doing what we do. And again, always like to point out, or at least occasionally, we're not ministers, and we just are told doing what we're expected to do as Baha'is is teach the faith. We also like to give, as usual, special thanks to Clearwater community, who is part of the Tampa Bay community, but of course we're coming to you through their website, through their webpage, right? And if anybody wanted to know more about the Baha'i faith, there are some
definitive websites. And those websites are www.baha'i.us, www.baha'iteachings.org, www.baha'i.org, and if you happen to be in the Tampa Bay area, you can always go to the Clearwater Baha'i website, which is www.clearwaterbaha'is.org.
Thank you very much, Daryl. And man, I got word the other day, another declaration, another local declaration.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Always feel good when we hear that. Wow. As Daryl always says, we're a little early now. I mean, we've got like 7 minutes. Might want to switch these switches back on. But as Daryl always says, what is it you always say, Daryl?
Well, what I always say is that the simplest and the best thing you can do, not just for you, but for everyone around you, over the next time period between now and whenever we see each other or meet again, the smartest thing you can do is to share the love. Sharing love doesn't have to be anything major. It can be something just as simple as saying hello to someone that you pass in the grocery store. Because sharing love is really God's way of saying, I'm here, and I'm here for you.
And if I may quote the lovely and talented Nini Ha, it's not that hard.
It's not that hard. It's so simple.
Be
yourselves, for the evil one is lying in wait, ready to entrap you. Gird yourselves against his wicked devices, and led by the light of the name of the all-seeing God, make your escape from the darkness that surrounded you. Let your vision be world-embracing, rather than confined to your own self. These are the words of Bahá'u'lláh. Folks, have yourselves a good week, and I forgot to say, we do have like maybe 30 seconds left. We forget. Sometimes I forget to mention that there's another program that on the Clearwater Baha'is.org website that comes after this. It's an adult class, and they always cover some, it's spiritual, but it's spiritual topics, but for a deeper understanding of the writings of Baha'u'lláh and its application to today. I always like to say it's a practical, application of spiritual principles. So have yourselves a good week, and as Daryl again says, share the love. Yeah. Take care, folks.
Thank you,
Bye,
Mr.
folks.
Joy,
Bye.
and everyone for participating.
And thank you, Keedy. Thank you so much, Miss Keedy and Mr. Baha.
Thank you.
Y'all take care.
Allah Akbar.
Allah Akbar.
Allah Akbar.
See you out there in Facebook land.
Yes, take care.